Are you ready to step back in time and uncover the rich history of Waterville, Maine? Join us once a month for an unforgettable journey through days gone by. For exact scheduling, look on watervillehistoricalsociety.org under events. During the events, you'll stroll down Main Street and immerse yourself in the iconic stores like Days Jewelers or reminisce about the early days of Thayer Hospital. Discover the roots of Colby College and other first-time discoveries that shaped our beloved city. From classic explorations to fascinating tales, there's something for everyone. Join us for social time, beverages, and light snacks starting at 1:30 p.m. And at 2 o'clock sharp, you'll be taken on an engaging journey through Waterville's past. And best of all, admission is free. And all are welcome. So check our calendars or make your way to the Reddington Museum, home of the Waterville Historical Society, at 62 Silver Street, right here in Waterville. We can't wait to go back in time with you. See you there.
I am very happy to announce Arend Thibodeau. He is from Harmony. He is a photographer. He is a registered Maine guide. He is an author. He brought 2 of his books with him today. One is currently at the publisher, so that would be book number 3, and he just finished researching book number 4. So the books that he has here for sale tonight are Residential Ruins of Maine and Forgotten Industry and Institutions of Maine, and he's also a musician. Plays in a 5-piece band called the Crown Vics. So he's down in the down east area?
Yeah, Bar Harbor, Ellsworth, and it's classic rock, Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, that sort of thing.
So little rock, little country. So what don't you do?
I don't do windows.
All right, so whenever you're ready to start.
Wonderful. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I also would like to introduce my lovely wife, Christy, here. She's also my research assistant, so probably 75% of the things I'm going to say tonight are thanks to her. So I really have to make sure I show my appreciation for her on a regular basis, because I take about 3, maybe 4 times as long to research as she does. She just boop, boop, get it. She knows how to do it. And she's here with our special needs dog, Speedy. He normally likes to say hi to people, but he's recovering from a spinal injury, so he's a little grumpy. And also, I would like to say this TV kind of darkens the pictures just a little bit. If you like, these are my browsing books. If you want to just grab one and look through it, please feel free. You can pass it around. It's totally up to you. I am what they call an urban explorer. Has anybody heard that term? A lot of people say it's just a fancy name for trespassers, but and although I admit I have snuck around a fence or 2 in my day, I try to get permission. 90% of the time I ask for permission. I'm going to speak quite a bit about the Seton Hospital that was closed a few years ago, and I had permission to go into that, etc. So to me, it's not really walking around and taking pictures of rusty old things. It's getting a glimpse into the past and trying to understand where we've come from, how we've evolved into the society we are today, the things that the hardships we used to endure and the things we used to have that we no longer really remember. This picture here, I always like to start off with this picture because this kind of lit the fire for me, if you will. I sent this picture in for the 2017 Maine Photography show, and it was selected to be in the show in the gallery in Boothbay Harbor. And the response I got from this image led me to believe that people might be interested in more of my images. So I sent a few in to a couple of publishers, and lo and behold, they were very interested, and they published these 2 books here. I've got, as she said, a 3rd book coming out this year and a 4th book next year, and I'll talk about them at the end. But excuse me, I'm just going to go through my notes. I don't want to miss anything. But I like to think what I do is as a study of how we've evolved as a society, the innovations as well as the hardships that we've endured to arrive at this point. For instance, when I first saw these milk trucks lined up in the field, I did not see rusting hunks of metal, but instead I saw a window into the past, a window to a period when every town in Maine had a milkman during the days before refrigerated trucks and pasteurized and homogenized milk. Everybody was reliant on the milkman. My grandfather used to drive a milk truck when he was in World War II. He was in the Coast Guard. He was off the coast of Okinawa on a Coast Guard frigate, I think. And when he came back, work was a little tough to find for people returning from overseas, so he drove a milk truck. And he used to tell me that you would feel like you were part of the family if you were driving a milk truck. People would be waiting to read the newspaper for you to show up so they could put cream in their coffee. And he would get cards every Christmas, and it was just such a tight community. And then, of course, in 1957, the pasteurization of milk became the standard, and the milk truck started to vanish. And now it's just sitting in junkyards somewhere. But to me, it's reflective of a time that people don't think about, but again, we had such close communities back then. Everybody was talking and visiting with a milkman every day, and the milkman would take the gossip from one house to the other, and that's how they would get the information. That was the internet. The milkman was the internet back in the day. So I was just enthralled with these milk trucks, so I took a couple pictures of them, and they are no longer there. It was like 3 months after I went and took pictures of these milk trucks, I went back to the same area, and it's just a big empty field now. So I'm very happy that I got my pictures. I don't know what they're doing with them or what they've done with them, but I suspect somebody might want to refurbish them and turn them into something modern day or whatnot, but it's a shame to see those milk trucks just gone like that. I also like to reflect on a time when great pride was taken in the manufacturing of our products. Details, craftsmanship, everybody had pride in their work, and everything was built to last. Take, for instance, this 1940 Nash Lafayette. The lines are clean and its condition is still impressive considering it is sitting out exposed to the elements in central Maine for 84 years. So things back then were designed to last, and they weren't made of large components of plastic and imported parts like they are today. Things are no longer made with longevity in mind, and we seem to have, I don't know, evolved into a disposable society. Is that fair to say? It's like if this computer, if it goes bad tonight, I take it into Best Buy tomorrow, they'll say, well, you just need a new computer. It's not even worth fixing anymore. Everything is just meant to be disposable. So there was a time when Detroit Steel referred to the solid cars that were being built in the Motor City. Now the term is pretty meaningless. It's not just cars and machinery though, it's homes and buildings as well. Now we have modular homes, kit homes, mobile homes. I'm not sure. Do you think future humans will look at the homes we're building today and marvel at the architecture and just talk about the design? Because that's what I do when I go see these old places. I look at the architectural phases we were going through. We went through the colonial phase, and we went through the federal phase, and the Victorian phase, and during the Victorian phase we had the Italianate, and we had the Gothic revival, and it's just so neat to see these places with these forms of architecture, and unfortunately they're quickly vanishing, and I don't think they're ever going to be replaced. I know they're not. So, of all those styles I just mentioned, would anybody like to take a stab at this? Tell me what architectural style building that is? And I'll tell you, that building that house right there is 181 years old.
Like a Cape Cod.
colonial architecture is what it's referred to. And the colonial architecture is very, well, kind of box-like, but very utilitarian. It was designed to house people and nothing fancy about it. It just, a door, a couple of windows, a couple of floors, and that's it. Just very, very plain and very well built. This one was built in 1883. This home was built in 1843. And this one was built in 1883. It's a beautiful home, but the contemporary mobile home that was attached to it, not so much. So I'm not sure that helped the property value at all. Now this home, I was able to go inside, and when you see a nice old colonial like this, you kind of think, wow, it's going to have some amazing things in it. And the only modern day touch to this, aside from the mobile home that's beside it, somebody put a metal roof on it, but they didn't really do much to the structure. It looks still pretty original. And so I went inside, and I went in every room, and every room was empty, except one. And this is what was in that one room. And most of them are period. They're of the period. They're that. So I don't know whether somebody went all through the house and took the chairs and put them all in this room, or perhaps there's a bunch of ghosts living in the house, and that's where they meet at night. I'm not sure, but it was very intriguing to me that every single room was empty except for this big pile of chairs in the one room. I'm sorry, I'm just interested in what you have to say.
No, I wondered what that piece of furniture, is it a chair or is it a lyre? Oh,
No, I believe they're all chairs.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if somebody was planning on recaning them or what, but there they sit. There they sit.
Was the house vacant? I mean, vacant meaning you could just walk right in?
Yes, the doors wide open. I took a picture from the inside of one of the empty rooms where the window was all smashed out and the curtain was blowing in. So it kind of impressed me the way that was. So I took a picture of it. But yeah, and that's an unfortunate thing. You'll see in my books that if it's something that's well known or a very secured place, meaning people can't go in there and do bad things, then I'll mention where it is. But for the most part, I try not to say where these places are, because we've gone into places, and I say we because there are other urban explorers, and we kind of have a little tight-knit community, and we talk to each other. But we've gone into places that we visited prior, and there's been nothing wrong with them, but when we've gone in a second time, everything is smashed, spray paint, graffiti. I mean, and it's not art, it's just vulgarity. I mean, the things they put on the wall, it shocks me, and I've seen a lot of things. So it's unfortunate that people see an empty place and they think, well, I think I'll just go in and smash things up and spray paint on the walls. That seems like the right thing to do. I don't know why people are the way they are sometimes. So this is a late period colonial home. It was built in 1924. The colonial style is it's just a plain functional style. It is quite different when we compare it to the more ornate style of the homes built in the federal style, which I'm getting to next. But this home here, it's unfortunate, but it's gone now. It was raised in 2022, and it had a grand staircase and a beautiful fireplace in it, but it's gone now. A lot of these places they just get unsafe. Like I have in my industries book, I have at least a dozen churches, and a lot of those are gone now too. They just it's sad how people will just let a church go like that.
Are you saying you think people just like went in and had parties and burned the thing down?
No, it just got so unsafe and it started to fall apart, and so they had to tear it down.
Have you ever
forward through a stair or through a floor in your exploring?
I have put, my foot's gone down through a floor, and a lot of times, you know, I've not gone any further when we've seen there's some pretty dangerous things. There's staircases just hanging by like one nail. You know, there's a lot of scary things in there. But, you know, I'm in there to document history and take interesting pictures, but not risk my life. So that's where I draw the line.
This reminds me of the painting by Wyeth, Christina's World. It's very similar to the house,
Oh.
the angle.
Well, thank you. He's an artist I admire. Anyway, so this is a colonial, and I just want to see if you can tell the difference with the federal style.
Yes.
So this is a federal style building, and one of the big telltale things is they usually have something decorative. You know, nice fancy windows. And another thing about the federal buildings or the federal style homes is they always seem to be rectangular. And if you ever in Brunswick, take a ride down Federal Street. You're going to see 20 or 30 of these, and they're in wonderful shape. I mean, they're upkept. They're not like this one here is just outside of Augusta, and the first floor is in the basement, and the second floor is falling down into the first. So it probably won't last another 2 years, and it'll be gone. But it's a really beautiful federal home, and it's unfortunate that it's going the way it is. So we're going to go back to the colonial, and we can see there's a bit, I mean, they both look rectangular, they're both two-story, but you can tell the difference. You can tell that this is just much more plainly built, and it's not that flashy. The thing I like most about this is, I'd like the fresh deer tracks, of course, but this here is a hitching post, and it's still there, and it's in perfect shape, and it's ready for somebody to just ride up and hook their horse and go in and visit. I couldn't believe that when I saw it. So that was pretty amazing to me.
With the side light windows, that was typical of the time, wasn't it? Those side light windows on that house.
Yes,
On the side of the door.
yes, they were, but not on. Well, in the later colonial period, they were. In the earlier, they not so much. They just had plain old doors. Anybody want to take a stab at this?
1890s.
I'm sorry?
1890s.
Let me see if I do have a year on this. I don't have a year on this one, but this is the Victorian era. And the Victorian era, who knows, anybody know why it's called the Victorian era?
Queen Victoria.
Queen Victoria, that's right. Her reign was from 1830 until 1910. So the architectural styles that evolved during those years are the Victorian era architectural styles. Now, everything is not just straight Victorian. This house could be considered straight Victorian. They use a lot of gambrels and gables and stuff like that in the Victorians. But within the Victorian period is when we had the Gothic and the Italianate and stuff like that. That's when all those other things started to evolve. And this home is being saved. 2 years ago, somebody purchased it, and they're trying to renovate it. It's in Jonesport, way down east, and I think they're gonna actually be able to save it. And it's surprising to me because this window here has been open for years, and I'm surprised the elements just didn't get it. Once something gets exposed to the elements, it takes no time for it to be gone. And here's an Italianate Victorian era home. Now, the Italianate styles, they kind of are tall and skinny. It was more, how did I word it? It can be identified by its vertical orientation. Things built in the Italianate design tended to look narrow and tall, for lack of a better description. But similar to this style, but it wasn't this style, was the Mansard style mansion. And this is in Bangor, and it's just as beautiful inside as it is outside. And the Mansard style mansion was named that way from the roof. The mansard is just another name for gambrel, and it's the roof on these handsome houses that the name comes from. And it's hard to tell because it's a little dark on the TV here, but it still has the slate shingles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's
And that's from French, right? French? I think it's from
the
French.
mansard. Yes, yes, yes.
You know why they made it that way? Because they were charged, they were taxed by how many stories they had. And if they had the roof like that, it was only considered 2 stories.
Thank you. I'm going to put that in my next talk. That makes total sense, though.
Yes, it does.
That makes,
Is there a lot in Portland
I'm sorry?
Stone house? Is that a stone house?
made of stone?
I don't think so. I think it did have bricks.
On the side there.
Yeah, okay. And so this was built by a lumber baron and a lumber baron's son. And he was a very wealthy, they had a lot of lumber industry in the Bangor area, and that house was built by them. And in the 1940s, it became a home for, how did they word it? A home for something men. A home for
Elderly men.
was it that simple? A home for elderly men. And it was a home for elderly men for, I believe, until the 60s, and then it became just a standard nursing home. And then they tried to turn it into apartments, and it failed, and it's pretty much been empty since the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Is that correct? I'm sorry? Yeah, it was an office building as well. So, but now it's just an empty building in Bangor. It's a beautiful building, though.
And it's got Italian marble fireplaces.
Oh, the stairway, there's a picture of the stairway in my book. I don't have it on the computer, but the stairway was not only just this gorgeous, long, curved stairway, but the wainscoting all the way up the stairwell was done in etched leather. It was etched leather wainscoting, and I know I've got a picture in here somewhere. There it is. You can just pass it around. This picture here and this picture here is the stairway, and you can see all that. That's all leather wainscoting right there. Right.
All the way up.
Is that house in Winslow?
No, Bangor.
Oh, this one?
It was.
Oh.
It was. No, I'll get to that in 1 second. I didn't realize I turned the picture that quickly. I'll take a sip of coffee and give you just a minute to let that book go around a little bit.
That's a great picture with the clouds.
So as this young lady accurately pointed out, this was in Winslow. Anybody want to take a stab at what this is? It's very, very specific. Those pointy things is the telltale right there. It's the Gothic Revival. And the Gothic Revival style had pointed spires, elaborate window tracery, and often had stained glass as well. This used to be a popular local home here in Winslow, and it was nicknamed the Gingerbread House. And it was actually in the National Register of Historic Places, and for some reason, and I don't know why, it was torn down in 2021. I was under the impression that if something was protected under the National Register of Historic Places, it didn't get torn down. So I don't know what happened, but it's gone now. It was leveled in 2021. Oh, and it is a perfect example. This is what they call the Gothic cottage rather than a Gothic house. And I don't know why they called it a cottage. It looked like a house, but it's beautiful design. There's another Gothic structure that I want to talk about. And I don't want to lose my notes, I'm sorry. Anybody recognize that one? That's a Gothic Revival meeting house or church. It's very close to here.
It was out towards the Albion Road?
It's in Solon. Solon, right beside Skowhegan. And this is the Solon Meeting House, which was built in 1842. Did you have a question?
Is that the one at the Skowhegan School of Art?
Yeah, we'll get there.
Right
Yeah,
inside?
yes. So it was built in 1842, and two brothers built it, and they built it for the community. And they said that this is a meeting house for the community. Anybody's welcome in it at any time, as long as it is for moral purposes. This building will always be open, and it's still to this day open. But for nearly 100 years, it was used as a church and a meeting house, and then it stopped being used. And when something stops being used, it quickly goes downhill. So by the mid to late 1940s, it was falling apart. It was in a pretty advanced state of disrepair, and the community was talking about getting rid of it and destroying it, leveling it, and doing something else with the property. But the Skowhegan Art School is a very popular art school in Skowhegan. I don't know the name of it, but it's still to this day there. They came in 1950, and they said, well, how about if we go in and we paint frescoes inside the church? And they did, wall to wall, floor to ceiling frescoes. And they are just breathtaking. When you go in there, it's just breathtaking. And they are all reimagined biblical scenes. So there's a reimagining of the Last Supper, Moses at the Mount Sinai, thank you. So all the biblical stories are reimagined and painted on the walls. And of course, the big image of Christ above the main pulpit, they call that the Godhead. That's what it was called. And there's some. If you go in there to visit, again, you can access this place anytime. And by the way, these are the original 1842 pews. And it is protected by the National Register of Historic Places, and I don't think they're going to tear this one down. So it's worth a drive to see. It's dark in there. It's difficult to photograph, but it's really worth your time to go see it. And I took a shot from the other side just to get a nice view of everything. It's got 2 organs, 2 pulpits, and a little upstairs. Oh, 3 organs. There's a 3rd organ upstairs. And there's a little area upstairs. It's a cute little meeting house, and I'm so glad they saved it. Now, does anybody know? Oh, please.
I just wanted to mention, my husband is from Solon originally, and he's buried there now.
Oh, really?
We had a family wedding there, and family sat in the pews with the family. And actually, Brian painted the back wall in there.
Really?
It is open for anybody to come into it, and we've been to musical performances there over the years.
Yes, and they have things there every summer. And if you go there to visit, they have a little schedule there, and the local historical society helps keep it up, and they've got little fundraisers and stuff that they do. And she's correct, they do have weddings and stuff in there. If you want to get married in there, you certainly could. Now, does everybody know what a fresco is, other than a mural on a wall? This is just a closer look at it. Now, what a fresco is, it's not a painting per se. They take colored pigment and they mix the pigment in the plaster and they put it on in the plaster. So it's not a painting on the wall, it's a painting in the wall. It's part of the wall, it's plaster. And the other place that did this, that made the fresco famous, was the Sistine Chapel. So it's this exact same method they used in the Sistine Chapel, and it will probably outlive the exterior of the building, as the Sistine Chapel has. My wife and I were just in Rome a few weeks ago, and I just stood there like this for at least 30 minutes. I just couldn't believe that. I've seen pictures of it, but to see it in real life, wow. that's all I can say. But not only did they use this incredible technique of using the plaster with the fresco, but the artists were able, you can see I shot it with the window, because they were able to perfectly set every one of these frescoes up so the natural light really made the picture pop and brought it to life. And again, the use of the light and the way they did the fresco, it's stellar. It's to have something like that right here in Solon, and most people don't even realize it's there. It's just maybe people not realizing it's there is kind of a good thing, but you know. But they are keeping an eye on it. The last time I was there was a couple of years ago, and I was in there. I was taking a few pictures, and the caretaker, he was there within 10 minutes. So just, you know, hey, what are you doing? And you know, everybody's got a right to be in there, but they just want to keep an eye on things, and I don't really blame them. Okay, so while I am on the subject of architecture, does anybody know what this is? What is it? Yeah, but what is the correct name for it?
Early hospital.
No. It's the Elizabeth Ann Seton Hospital. Yeah. Would anybody like to know who Elizabeth Ann Seton was? I'm sorry?
First American saint?
Yes. Bravo. She was the first American to be canonized by the Catholic Church as a saint. And I've got it here, what miracles she performed to get her sainthood. But she was an Episcopalian, and she converted to Catholicism later in life. And I have her entire biography here. It's quite lengthy if anybody wants to see it. But I unlike you, I did not realize that it was named after Elizabeth Ann Seton, because I've always heard it referred to as the Seton Hospital. My grandmother was in there after she had a stroke, and it was always the Seton unit. That's all we ever called it. But in order to be canonized, a person, whoop, I keep hitting the button here. Sorry. In order to be canonized, a person must either be a martyr or perform at least 2 miracles. For Seton, her miracles occurred through intercession or prayers asking for help. The first miracle attributed to Seton happened in New Orleans, where Sister Gertrude Korzendorfer made a full recovery from pancreatic cancer in the 1930s. 4-year-old Ann Teresa O'Neill was also cured of acute lymphatic leukemia in 1952 after Sister Mary Alice prayed to Seton. Finally, Carl E. Callan was given a few hours to live in 1963 when he was brought to St. Joseph's Hospital in New York. He was diagnosed with meningitis of the brain and was in a coma. The Sisters of Charity of the New York chapter visited Callan and placed a piece of Seton's bone, known on a relic, on him and prayed to Seton. Callan woke up a few hours later. Medical professionals cannot explain how these 3 people were cured, therefore they are considered miracles. During her lifetime and after, Elizabeth Ann Seton was known for her devoutness, her compassion, and her desire to help others. She converted to Catholicism, where she worked to establish and grow the Sisters of Charity, who pray to her to cure others. Elizabeth Ann Seton is the remarkable first American saint.
This is in Waterville, right? The Seton Hospital?
Right up the road.
I worked there. I worked for the old Sisters Hospital the summer that they just built the new one.
Really?
In summertime, I worked there. And when we were moving the stuff, we could use the morgue for our sandwiches to save for later.
Really?
Wasn't that an...
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I was in there a couple weeks ago, and I went top to bottom. Top to bottom. I never found a morgue. I never found one anywhere.
Well, maybe it wasn't a morgue. It might have just whatever, you know.
Okay. But I hate to say, I'm a little bit of a morbid guy, so I was a little bit disappointed not to find one, but it's okay. I'm sorry?
The morgue is in the basement, or was in the basement?
Yeah, we went all through the basement, but they have taken a lot of things out,
Yeah.
so they could have just taken, you know,
Does that now?
yeah, yeah. So, where am I here?
Sorry.
No, that's fine. So, the Elizabeth Ann Seton Hospital, this another thing that surprised me. I didn't realize this until just the other day. It was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2016 due to its historical significance in architecture. And we'll get there. So whoever owns it now, and his name is Kevin, I've spoken with him because he let me in, he's going to have to adhere to the National Register standards when he does anything to that, because it's the exterior of the building that's the reason it's protected, because of the architecture. And the hospital was designed in 1963 by architect James Ritchie of Boston. Now that doesn't mean anything to me, and it probably doesn't mean anything to you, but I guess he was a pretty famous architect, and this was quite a stunning accomplishment of his when he built it in 1965. It became a hospital in 1965 after he designed it in 1963. It was completed and opened in 1965. The hospital merged with Thayer in 1975, and the two hospitals formed Mid-Maine Medical Center, and it came to be known as the Seton Unit. Earlier, I'm sorry?
There was an article in the paper that somebody wants to develop it into apartments. Did anyone see that or come across it?
I saw that, and I also think they got held up with permitting. And I'm not sure if that had something to do with the National Register or what, but I believe that they were trying to do the apartments 3 or 4 years ago, and it's been stalled ever since. But earlier I mentioned that I try to connect things to the human condition to make them universally relatable. And to me, what picture am I on here? I'm a little behind myself. Nothing epitomizes the human condition quite like a hospital. For half a century, people were born here, people worked here, and people died here. The entire cycle of human life is represented in one facility.
The murals in pediatrics.
Yeah, this was a pediatric ward. This was the psych ward, right? Psych ward, pediatric ward. That's the pediatric ward. And this was the elderly care unit. And this is the chapel. And unfortunately, I took choice pictures. And Kevin, the owner, and I had a discussion. Some people have been breaking in with their spray paint. And if you look at this nurse's station, see where they've been trying to smash the safety glass. So it's all through the hospital. They've gone through with spray paint. They've broken windows. And again, I showed the good murals that could be shown, but people spray painted over those children's murals and everything in there. I don't understand what possesses people to do this. I really don't. And it's a source of aggravation for me. I love this. This seems to be the original tile. This just, I hope they are able to preserve it in some way. Okay, where am I? I'm sorry, I got a little off place. Okay, so while I'm talking about connections, I would like to change course slightly and talk about some of Maine's forgotten history and the connections to Waterville. Has everybody here heard of the ghost trains of Maine?
Yes.
All right. So the ghost trains of Maine have a very, very unique Waterville connection. Anybody want to guess what it might be?
Waterville was where all the big railroad repair shops were, and once employed 350 people repairing all the trains.
Yeah, but that's...
Engines, and they had a big round, another big roundhouse, and where the engines came.
That's not it, though. That's not the connection, but that's an excellent guess. The Eagle Lake and West Branch Railroad, where am I here? I keep getting ahead of myself. There we go. The Eagle Lake and West Branch Railroad was the brainchild of Edward LaCroix, who was a land baron who specialized in timber operations and had over 3,500 employees in the North Maine woods. Now, I'm a Maine guide, so I've been up there a lot, but has anybody, who has not been to the Allagash?
Who has not been?
Yeah, just a couple people. So most everybody's familiar with the Allagash, and it's a pretty desolate place. There's not many people up there. There's a few moose and a lot of bear. But at one time, where Churchill Dam was, and Edward LaCroix, he built Churchill Dam. He built Churchill Station. It was a bustling community in the early 1900s. There was a logging operation up there with thousands of employees. The train went into the Allagash. It went into the Churchill Depot and dropped people off, and workers were there. People lived there. There were boarding houses there. You go up there now, and the old boarding house is sitting there. It's the state has preserved it, but there's just a ranger station, and there's only one resident up there, a ranger. But it used to be a bustling community.
And you can actually see, if you go upstairs into that boarding house, where the men's greasy heads after a long day's work would love on the wall. It's really...
Yeah, and it was transients would be where they'd come and stay there for just brief periods. It was just literally a boarding house. So in the early 1920s, Edward devised and built the railroad through 13 miles of dense forest, and that's what's left of it there, and that the signage is still there, which is really cool. There's like, you'd just be walking through the woods and all of a sudden you see a sign, and you're like, what's that sign? And you look and you're standing on a railroad track. It's really quite something up there. So it went through 13 miles of dense forest, including a 1,000-foot trestle bridge across part of Chamberlain Lake. So the trestles, steel rails, loaders, what they use to put the logs onto the trains, the gas-powered switchers, they have these little locomotive switchers that would kind of turn things around and get them going. So the trestle, steel rails, loaders, gas-powered switchers, 60 train cars, and 2 90-ton locomotives were all brought across the ice on Churchill Lake during the winter months using Lombard tractors. In fact, the railroad probably would have never come to fruition if it wasn't for the Lombard tractors. That's, again, there's just train stuff all through the woods up there. It's crazy. The railroad closed in 1927, and by the time it closed, all the railroads had swapped over to big diesels, and so the steam trains were obsolete. So they just left the entire railroad and walked away and abandoned it in the woods. And I do have a couple of historic photos here. They're really hard to see, but they've just brought a bunch of loads in with the Lombards, and these are the guys all sitting there. That's all the equipment that they're getting ready to set up the railroad up there. And here's one. There's the Lombard tractor, and there's a bunch of train components that they're bringing in for the railroad. And my third picture is when the railroad was brand new with a shiny locomotive. This was in 1928, and there's the engineers standing in front of their train. Isn't that something?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so moving forward, let me see where I'm at. I have a mill that everybody's very familiar with. Everybody familiar with that one?
Is that a Cascade?
It is. It was. Yes.
What is that?
This is. Hold on. I want to get in the right place here. This is an example of why I do what I do. I was far too late with this one, and I sure wish I could have documented it before it was gone. This is the Cascade Woolen Mill in Oakland. And it was built in 1882 and became one of the area's largest employers in the 20th century. The company was unfortunately, like many other Maine mills, and it failed in the 90s. The beautiful 5-story mill sat abandoned until it was destroyed by arson just a few yards from the fire station. And here's a look inside the mill. Whoop, where am I? Okay, yeah, that's, all right. So that's what it used to look like, and that's what it looks like now. Here's a look inside the mill in 1902. And let me read, I want to read a little bit about this mill before I go to the next picture. In 1882, R.B. Dunn, Josiah Mayo, Seth Milliken, John Iyer, and D.A. Campbell purchased land and water power from Dunn Edge Tool Company and constructed the Cascade Woolen Mill. Milliken was one of the founders of the Deering-Milliken Textile Corporation, one of the largest in the U.S. Dunn was president of the Dunn Edge Tool Company and one of the most prominent businessmen and industrialists in Oakland. In 1882, the partners leased water from the tool company and connected their new mill through belts and pulleys to the Dunn factory. This mill employed 110 people and manufactured $250,000 of woolen goods in 1902, same year this picture was taken. Working conditions during the early days of the mill were probably typical of factories at the time. The work week was 6 days, 54 hours, without today's shift work or overtime pay. Women were paid considerably less than men, and oftentimes workers had their children tend the machinery while they had lunch. In 1924, the mill was electrified and wiring, motors, and lighting were installed. In the mid-1930s, more shifts were added, efficiency was improved, and production increased when the full benefits of electrification were realized. Under the Roosevelt Recovery Plan, the 40-hour work week and a union were adopted at Cascade. The Cascade Woolen Mill was destroyed by a spectacular fire in 2010. The 5-story, 127-year-old mill burned in January 2010, generating 50-foot flames that could be seen from Winslow and were so hot they cracked the windshield of fire trucks 175 yards away. So this was a picture of the inside, the interior of the mill in 1902, and here it is in 2022. Wow. Yes?
I should add that at the time that mill was built, Oakland was part of Waterville, and it was known as West Waterville. And Dunn and Milliken were major, not just in West Waterville, but in Waterville, and they built some of the major buildings on Main Street. Milliken, I think, was that block, with several buildings in that block that burned in the fire of 1961. Anyone remember that? February 1st, 1961, it was 24 below zero, and the fire trucks turned to ice, and that whole block.
Wow. That's very interesting. Thank you for adding that. I appreciate that. But yeah, and apparently the 2010 fire was arson. So it's a shame. It's just in shambles now. Okay, I have one more thing to talk about here, and then I want, sorry, I'm a little disorganized here tonight. I don't mean to be. I have too many papers. Now this is one, I'm gonna end this little talk here with a bit of a mystery. Sometimes the history of these places is elusive, and this was one of those times. This is downtown Fairfield at the early 1900s, or?
I think that was 19.
Yeah. And the building in question.
World War I, I would say.
What's that?
Around World War I, the cars.
Yeah, yes. The building in question is right here. I got a close-up of it.
Oh, yes.
Right there. It's got garage on it. So,
Well, most of those buildings were still there when I was a kid in the early 50s. They're all gone now.
well, this one is still there. And that's the building I've been trying to figure out. And it was built in 1895, that much I know. But Fairfield has terrible tax records, and we just had the worst time getting any information on this building. But it was built in 1895, and it was as a buggy repair shop. So the first thing it was built as, or the first thing it was used as, was a buggy repair shop before becoming a Ford dealership and garage selling Model Ts. And then in the 1950s, back probably when you remember, it was a creamery.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah, the pinecone.
yeah.
And if you got a red tip, you got a red tip on the.
And it stayed a creamery for decades, and then in the 90s it became an antique store and like a discount, I believe it was called Spencer's. It was discount and antiques, and then it became abandoned. And the current owner commissioned the artwork. There it is now. This is what it looks like today. The current owner commissioned the artwork, and it was painted by cartoonist Forrest Tabor, who I've never heard of, but he's a well-known cartoonist that did all the work on the exterior of the building. And the owner wanted to turn it into a restaurant, and either his attempts have failed or stalled, but it's still sitting empty. So I'm not exactly sure what happened.
It's got a new entrance.
What's that?
It's got a new entrance.
Electrical entrance.
Electrical entrance. That's three-phase power right up there.
Yep.
Right up near the top of the river.
Right, but see, these are all empty though. So the power's it's powered, but they've all been disconnected.
They never had a.
So I don't know what they're gonna do with it. It's such a beautiful building. I don't know how I feel about that artwork, because I really don't. I don't care for it, I guess. Yeah.
Did you get to go inside?
I did. It was empty. It was empty. There's a like a creamery tank in the basement, but it's pretty gutted. It's been pretty gone over, and they've got it secured now because I think, well, there's a lot of kids that do a lot of bad things at night around the Fairfield area. So so now it's empty.
It's right on the river too, right?
Yes, it is. The river's right behind there, and there's a garage. You can see the tip of it there. So I guess they used to have a drive where people would be able to go down into the garage, because you see this sign here. It says garage right on it.
Yeah.
But the only place where there was any garage bays, I suppose there could have been something here at one time, and they might have bricked it in. I'm not sure.
Find pictures or information on that building?
Yeah, this again, I've written 4 books, and this was the most difficult thing. And I was just there a couple months ago, and I'm like, this will be interesting to talk about in Waterville. Well, this should be pretty easy to figure out. Well, we were working on this thing for weeks, and I still don't. I think it was a buggy repair shop, and I think it was a Model T shop, but I can't confirm it. And that's just what I've gathered from reading newspaper articles and stuff. That it's one of the, again, some towns are really good with their taxes and their records. Some towns leave a lot to be desired. That's pretty much my talk. I want to talk about a couple of things that I'm also working on now. And this is my newest project here, and I just wrapped it up. Anybody know what that is?
No.
That's an Army Nike missile base. And from 1958 until 1966, it had nuclear-tipped Hercules missiles there, and it was part of the Loring Defense System. There was 4 Army Nike bases, and 2 of them were conventional missiles, and 2 of them were nuclear-tipped Hercules missiles. And each Nike base had an accompanying radar installation. So each Nike base was 2 installations, the launch facility and the radar facility. And then, of course, they were protecting Loring Air Force Base as it was being built, but they weren't really protecting Loring Air Force Base. They were protecting North River Depot. And North River Depot and Caribou Air Force Station, which is one in the same place, they're in the northeast corner. I'm going to use my hand map. They're in the northeast corner of Loring Air Force Base. And what the North River Depot was, it was the largest nuclear weapons operational stockpile in the world. And we had them right here in Maine. The list of nukes that was in that depot is 3 pages long. It's in my book. We had everything from the Fat Man that they dropped on Nagasaki to these slim missiles, these little missiles that they would fire from the wings of the B-52s. And the name of the book that I've just finished, I was just up there getting the last of the information 2 weeks ago. It's The Aroostook Arms Race, Cold War, and the Crown of Maine. And I talk about the billions of dollars they spent to build all these missile facilities and the nuclear stockpile, and it is just insane, the amount of stuff up there. So it was really a fun project, and a couple of the landowners, I went down in one of these Nike silos where they used to have the missiles underground. It was pretty impressive. And of course, one of the biggest sources of contention up there right now is the arch hangar. It's owned by all of us in the state of Maine. We own it, but the Loring Development Authority, they've got this big fantasy that they're going to bring an airport in there, but they're not. It's been 30 years abandoned and nothing's happening. And the Loring Museum is trying to take it and preserve it, but the Loring Development Authority won't let them. And I just think more people from the state of Maine need to say, hey, we need to save this hangar. But this is the inside of the arch hangar, and this is concrete. And it was an engineering marvel when it was made in 1947. It's all thin shell concrete. That whole arch is all concrete. And it was built to house 2 B-36 bombers. And just to give you some idea of how big that arch hangar really is, these are full-size trucks. These are big, heavy-duty snow plows and full-size dump trucks. This is a school bus. Wow. And they look like Matchbox toys in that hangar.
Wow. When was it decommissioned?
Loring was closed in 1994.
And that went along with the Loring closure.
I'm sorry?
The closure of this went along with the closure of Loring.
Yeah, 1994. It closed in 1994. The Nike bases closed in 1966.
Oh, okay.
So basically, the Nike bases were built to defend Loring, and once Loring was all built and up and running, they had their own fighter interceptors, and they had plenty of stuff there, so the Nike sites kind of closed down. But they also had a Sage radar array up there, Caswell Air Force Station. It had these big radars, and they would watch the North sky. And as a matter of fact, when the Cuban Missile Crisis happened, everybody was panicking up there because all the radars and all the defense systems were pointed north because we were sure the Russians were coming from the Arctic Circle. And of course, they're going to build a missile base in Cuba, and they're like, we got to turn the radars around. So they were just panicking. And so it's been a really, I'm a Navy veteran, so I've got a little bit of vested interest in it, but I didn't know anything about the Air Force or the Army. And to be quite honest with you, my history with the Cold War and the end of World War II was a little rusty as well, but it was an incredible learning experience for me to work on that project. I'm very proud of that. I'm excited about it. And my other project that's coming out sometime this year is called Buried in Maine, and it's a tour of historic Maine cemeteries and historic Maine graves. And this is in Harpswell, and this is a meeting house built in the 1700s, and of course these are all the settlers' graves. And I'm just gonna end this with this one grave, and this is in Winslow, and this is a tombstone in Winslow, and I'm gonna read to you the epitaph, and I think you'll all enjoy it because it's a very, very good one, if I can find it. Oh, I do have it. Okay. Here lies the body of Richard Thomas, an Englishman by birth, a Whig of 76, by occupation a cooper, now food for worms. Like an old rampuncheon, marked number and shooked, he will be raised again and finished by his creator. He died September 28, 1824, age 75. America, my adopted country, my best advice to you is to take care of your liberties.
Oh,
So, thank you.